Daejung pushed his cleaning cart down the empty corridor of Base Epsilon 7. His footsteps echoed in the silence of the night shift. He had been working as a janitor on this massive space station for 2 years now. Most people never noticed him. That was fine. He preferred it that way. The xenobiology wing always made him nervous. Strange creatures lived behind those reinforced doors. The Krathix warriors were the worst. They were 8 feet tall with scales like armor and teeth that could tear through metal. Everyone feared them. Even the other aliens stayed away when the Krathix walked past. Tonight, Daejung had to clean the waste disposal area near the Krathix breeding chambers. He held his breath as he entered. The smell was terrible. He started his work quickly, wanting to finish and leave. Then he heard it. A small sound. A weak chirping noise coming from inside one of the disposal units. Daejung stopped. He knew that sound. Years ago, back on Earth, he had been a veterinarian. He had heard newborn animals make similar sounds when they were cold and hungry. But this was a space station. Nothing should be alive in the trash. He opened the unit carefully. His hands shook. Inside, buried under waste materials, was something small and moving. Daejung reached in and pulled it out. It was a baby. A Krathix baby. The hatchling was barely bigger than a house cat. Its scales were still soft, not yet hardened like the adults. Its eyes were closed. It was so cold that it barely moved. Daejung felt his heart break. Someone had thrown this baby away like garbage. He looked around. The corridor was empty. Security cameras watched everything. But Daejung knew they only checked the footage if something was reported. He made a decision that would change his life forever. He wrapped the hatchling in his cleaning cloth and placed it inside his cart, covering it with supplies. Then he finished his shift as normally as he could, his heart pounding the entire time. Back in his small quarters, Daejung laid the hatchling on his bed. He turned up the heat as high as it would go. The baby was hypothermic, barely alive. Daejung had no medical supplies for aliens, only his old knowledge and instinct. He remembered treating baby lizards on Earth. Reptiles needed warmth first. He filled bottles with hot water and placed them around the hatchling. Then he searched his computer for information about Krathix biology. What he found made him angry. The article explained that Krathix sometimes abandoned hatchlings with defects. These babies were left to die because they were considered weak. The Krathix only wanted the strongest warriors. What kind of defect could a baby have? Daejung whispered. He examined the hatchling carefully. It looked perfect to him, maybe a little small, but otherwise healthy. The baby's mouth opened slightly. It was hungry. Daejung knew he needed to find food, but what did Krathix babies eat? He searched again and found that they needed a protein-rich formula. He didn't have that, but he did have protein powder from his own supplies. He mixed the powder with water and carefully fed drops into the baby's mouth using a cloth. The hatchling swallowed weakly at first, then stronger. It was a good sign. Daejung sat beside his bed all night, watching the baby breathe. He had not felt this way in 5 years, not since he lost his family in the accident on Earth. He had thought that part of his heart was dead. But looking at this tiny creature fighting to survive, he felt something wake up inside him. "I'll call you Kai," he said softly. In Korean, it meant restoration. "Because maybe you can help me heal too." By morning, Kai's color looked better. His scales were warming up and he was moving more. Daejung knew he had to be careful. Someone would notice eventually. He called in sick for his shift, something he never did. He needed time to think. His computer beeped. A message from Commander Harin, the human liaison officer. Daejung's blood went cold. Did they know already? He opened the message. It was a routine notice about new security protocols. Daejung breathed out in relief. But the message reminded him that the base had bioscanners everywhere. How long before they detected an unauthorized life form in his quarters? He needed help. There was only one person he could trust. Taewon worked in maintenance, and they sometimes ate lunch together. Taewon was one of the few people on base who treated Dae-jung like a real person, not just a janitor. Dae-jung sent a careful message asking Taewon to visit. 20 minutes later, there was a knock on his door. Dae-jung let Taewon inside, quickly. "What's going on?" "You never call in sick," Taewon said. Then he saw Kai sleeping on the bed. His eyes went wide. "Is that what I think it is?" "I found him in the trash," Dae-jung said. "They were going to let him die. Do you know what they'll do if they find out?" Taewon asked. "The Krothiks don't like outsiders interfering with their traditions. And regulations say we can't interfere with alien reproduction protocols." "I know," Dae-jung said. "But I couldn't leave him there." "He's just a baby." Taewon looked at Kai for a long moment. The hatchling yawned, showing tiny teeth. Then Taewon sighed. "Okay, I'll help. But we need to be smart about this. The bioscanners will detect him soon." "Can you disable them?" Dae-jung asked. "Not disable. But I can modify them to register him as a pet. Humans are allowed to keep small animals. If anyone asks, we'll say he's a rare Earth lizard." It was a weak plan, but it was something. Taewon spent the next hour working on his tablet, hacking into the base systems. "Done," he finally said. "But this won't fool a visual inspection. If anyone actually sees him..." "I'll be careful," Dae-jung promised. Taewon left, and Dae-jung was alone with Kai again. The hatchling was awake now, looking at him with bright eyes. Those eyes didn't look like the cold, hard eyes of adult Krothiks. They looked curious and innocent. Dae-jung reached out slowly. Kai sniffed his hand, then made a small, chirping sound. It wasn't a threatening sound. It sounded almost happy. The baby's tail wrapped around Dae-jung's arm gently, seeking warmth and comfort. That simple gesture broke something inside Dae-jung. Tears ran down his face. He had not cried since the accident. But now, holding this abandoned alien baby, he couldn't stop. All the grief he had buried came flooding back, and with it came something else. Purpose. "I won't let them hurt you," he whispered to Kai. "I already lost one family. I won't lose another." Days passed. Dae-jung returned to work but arranged his schedule so he was never gone long. Kai grew stronger each day. He started eating more, moving more, making more sounds. Dae-jung fed him, kept him warm, and talked to him constantly. Then, 1 week after finding Kai, everything went wrong. Dae-jung returned from his shift to find Commander Ha-rin standing outside his door. "We need to talk," she said. Her face was serious. Dae-jung's heart sank. "About what?" "Security detected a biosignature anomaly in your quarters. At first, we thought it was a scanner malfunction. But the readings are consistent. You have an unauthorized life form inside." She paused. "What have you done, Dae-jung?" There was no point in lying. "I saved a life," he said simply. Ha-rin's expression softened slightly. "Show me." Dae-jung opened his door. Kai was curled up on a heated pad Dae-jung had made for him. The hatchling looked up when they entered, chirping at Dae-jung. "Oh no," Ha-rin breathed. "Do you understand what this means? That's a Krathik's hatchling. If General Vrixnel finds out you have him, it could cause a diplomatic incident." "Then don't tell him," Da-jung said. "It's not that simple. The security reports go to multiple departments. Others will see the anomaly. They'll investigate." Ha-rin looked at Kai, who had crawled closer to Dae-jung protectively. "Why was he abandoned?" "I don't know. The article said something about defects, but I can't find anything wrong with him." Ha-rin pulled out her tablet and scanned Kai. She frowned at the results. According to this, his brain shows unusual activity patterns, higher emotional capacity than normal Krothiks. That's probably why he was culled. They saw it as a weakness. That's not a weakness, Daejung said. You're not Krathiks, Harin said. They see the universe differently. To them, emotion is a flaw in a warrior. I don't care what they think. I'm keeping him. Harin closed her eyes. When she opened them, Daejung could see she had made a decision. Use that time to figure something out. But Daejung, I can't protect you forever. Eventually, the general will know. After she left, Daejung sat on the floor beside Kai. The hatchling climbed into his lap, seeking comfort. Daejung stroked his scales gently. We're in trouble, little one, he said. But we'll find a way. I promise. Outside his window, the stars shone cold and distant. Somewhere out there was Earth, his old home. But Earth held only painful memories now. This tiny alien in his lap. This was his family now. And he would fight for him with everything he had. Kai made a soft sound and pressed his head against Daejung's chest, right over his heart. It was a gesture of complete trust. Daejung closed his eyes and held him close. Whatever came next, they would face it together. 3 months had passed since Daejung found Kai in the disposal unit. The hatchling was no longer small enough to hide in a cleaning cart. He had grown to the size of a large dog, his scales hardening into their adult pattern. But despite his increasing size, Kai remained gentle with Daejung. Every day brought new challenges. Daejung had to find more food. Kai ate 4 times what he used to. The protein powder wasn't enough anymore. So Daejung bought raw meat from the base commissary. The workers there started giving him strange looks. Having a lot of barbecues? One of them asked. I like meal prep. Daejung lied, his face hot with embarrassment. But food was the least of his problems. Kai was smart. Much smarter than anyone expected. He watched everything Daejung did and tried to copy him. When Daejung spoke, Kai tilted his head and listened carefully. After 2 months, Kai started to understand simple words. Sit, Daejung would say, and Kai would sit. Stay. And Kai would wait patiently, even when Daejung left for work. The intelligence both amazed and frightened Daejung. Adult Krathiks were smart, but they thought only about war and strength. Kai was different. He was curious about everything. He liked to watch the stars through the window. He enjoyed music from Daejung's old collection. Sometimes Daejung would catch Kai humming along, creating a strange rumbling sound that was almost melodic. One evening, Daejung taught Kai simple sign language. He pointed to himself. Me. Daejung. Then he pointed to Kai. You. Kai. Kai's eyes brightened. He lifted his clawed hand and pointed to Daejung, then made a gesture with his other hand. It was clumsy, but clear. He was trying to sign. Daejung felt tears in his eyes again. This wasn't supposed to be possible. The articles said Krathiks couldn't learn complex communication. They operated on instinct and basic commands. But here was Kai, trying to talk. Taewon visited often now. He brought supplies and helped modify Daejung's quarters to accommodate Kai's size. They installed stronger locks and added a second heater. Taewon even brought toys, though Kai was more interested in Daejung's books. He likes this one, Daejung said one day, holding up a battered copy of The Little Prince. It was one of the few items Daejung had brought from Earth. He keeps looking at the pictures. Daejung, read it to him, Taewon suggested. See what happens. So Daejung did. He sat on the floor with Kai's large head resting in his lap and read the entire book. Kai listened without moving, his eyes fixed on the pages. When Daejung finished, Kai made a sound like a sigh. Did you like it? Daejung asked. Kai carefully took the book in his claws and held it close. Then, he signed clumsily. Taewon laughed in disbelief. He understood the story. Daejung, do you know what this means? He's not just intelligent. He has empathy. He connected with the characters. That's his defect, Daejung said bitterly. The thing that almost got him killed. He can feel what others feel, but feelings were dangerous on a military base. Kai was becoming protective of Daejung. When someone knocked on the door, Kai would position himself between Daejung and the entrance. It was instinct, the warrior nature of his species. But it worried Daejung. What if someone saw? What if Kai hurt someone trying to protect him? You have to be gentle, Daejung told him repeatedly. Humans are soft. You're strong now. You could hurt people without meaning to. Kai seemed to understand. He practiced moving carefully, pulling his claws in when he got excited. He learned to control his tail so he wouldn't knock things over. He was trying so hard to be good. But secrets don't stay hidden forever. Lieutenant Byung-ho was an ambitious human officer who hated that he was stuck on a frontier base. He wanted promotion, recognition, anything to get him transferred to a better position. He noticed that Daejung had changed. The janitor who used to work overtime was now rushing to finish his shifts. He was buying excessive amounts of food. He was always tired, like he wasn't sleeping. Byung-ho started watching Daejung. He checked supply records and security logs. Something was off about the janitor's quarters. The power consumption was triple what it should be, and those bioscanner readings that had been flagged 3 months ago had mysteriously disappeared from the system. Someone was hiding something. And Byung-ho intended to find out what. Meanwhile, Daejung was struggling with another problem. Kai needed exercise. The small quarters weren't enough space anymore. Kai was getting restless, pacing back and forth. He needed to run, to move, to be active like his species demanded. I can sneak him into the cargo bay at night, Taewon suggested. It's mostly empty. And there are no cameras in the old section. So, they started doing midnight runs. Daejung would wait until the late shift ended. Then he and Taewon would smuggle Kai through the maintenance corridors to the cargo bay. There, Kai could finally stretch his legs and run. He was so fast, so powerful. Watching him move, Daejung could see the warrior he would become. But Kai always came back to Daejung after running. He would lower his head for scratches, making that rumbling purr sound. He was still the same gentle soul, just in a bigger body. One night, as they were returning from the cargo bay, alarms suddenly blared through the station. An emergency drill. Lights flashed red. Announcement speakers crackled to life. All personnel report to designated stations. This is a drill. Repeat. This is a drill. Panic hit Daejung. They were in a public corridor. Kai was with them. People would see. Run, Taewon shouted. They sprinted toward the residential section. But it was too late. A security patrol rounded the corner ahead of them. The officers froze when they saw Kai. What the hell is that? One of them yelled, reaching for his weapon. Kai sensed danger. His scales flared up defensively, making him look even bigger. He growled, a sound that shook the walls. The security officers backed away in fear. Don't shoot. Daejung threw himself in front of Kai. Please. Don't shoot. That's a Krathix, the security officer shouted into his radio. We have an unauthorized Krathix in corridor D7, requesting backup. More alarms. More flashing lights. Within minutes, the corridor was filled with security personnel. Daejung stood with his arms spread, protecting Kai. Behind him, Kai was shaking, not with aggression, but with fear. Commander Harin arrived, her face pale. Behind her came General Vrix Nal, the massive Krathix commander of the base. He towered over everyone, his scales gleaming like black metal in the emergency lights. The general's eyes fixed on Kai. Recognition and disgust filled his expression. The defective hatchling, Vrixnal said in a voice like grinding stone. I ordered it disposed of. Why is it alive? I saved him, Daejung said, his voice shaking but firm. He was dying in the trash. It was scheduled for culling, Vrixnell said. It carries genetic flaws that make it unsuitable for service. Its existence is an insult to Krathik's purity. He's just a child, Daejung argued. He deserves a chance to live. Human, you know nothing of our ways. We must be strong. The weak are removed, so they do not contaminate the clutch. Vrixnall drew his weapon. Step aside. I will correct this error now. Daejung didn't move. Behind him, Kai made a small, frightened sound. That sound broke Daejung's heart. Kai wasn't a warrior yet. He was still just a scared child. No, Daejung said. You'll have to kill me first. The corridor went silent. No one breathed. A human was defying a Krathik's general. It was insane. It was suicidal. Commander Hareen stepped forward quickly. General, with respect, the hatchling is now technically under human custody. This falls under interspecies custody law. We must hold a proper hearing. There is nothing to discuss. Vrixnall growled. If you execute him without due process, it will create a diplomatic incident, Hareen pressed. The Coalition Council will get involved. Other species are watching how we handle these matters. The general's claws flexed. He wanted to refuse, but he was also a military leader who understood politics. Finally, he spoke. Very well, a hearing. But the hatchling will be tested. If it cannot prove it has value, it will be executed as originally intended. Tested how? Daejung asked. In 6 months, it will undergo the proving. The same trial our young warriors face before reaching adulthood. If it passes, it may live. If it fails. Vrixnall's meaning was clear. That's impossible, Taewon protested. The proving is for adolescent Krathiks. He's too young. Then he will fail, and this matter will be resolved, Vrixnall said coldly. He looked at Kai with contempt. Take the creature to containment until the hearing. The human will face charges for violating regulations. Security officers moved forward. Daejung felt Kai press against his back, trembling. It's okay, he whispered. I'll fix this. I promise. They were separated. Kai was taken to a holding cell in the xenobiology wing. Daejung was confined to quarters pending the hearing. As he watched them lead Kai away, the young Krathiks looked back, his eyes full of fear and confusion. He signed clumsily with his claws. Why? Daejung had no answer. How could he explain to Kai that the universe was often cruel? That people feared what they didn't understand? Alone in his quarters that night, Daejung stared at the stars again. Somewhere out there was Earth, where he had lost everything once before. Now, on this cold station, among aliens, he had found something precious again. And he was about to lose it. Unless he could do the impossible. He pulled up every article he could find about the Krathiks proving. It was a brutal trial designed to push young warriors to their limits. Combat. Strategy. Survival. Most passed, but some died in the attempt. And Kai was younger than any Krathiks who had ever faced it. 6 months. He had 6 months to prepare Kai for a test that might kill him. Daejung looked at the battered copy of The Little Prince sitting on his desk. He thought about the story, about the fox who said that important things are invisible to the eye, about love and responsibility. I am responsible for what I have tamed, he whispered. He opened a new document and began to plan. If they wanted a warrior, he would help Kai become one. But not the kind of warrior the Krathiks expected. A different kind. Better. Outside his door, he heard footsteps. A note slipped under. He opened it. I'm with you. We'll train him together. Tae. 1. Daejung smiled despite everything. The next morning, Commander Hareen arrived. The hearing is in 3 days. I'll do what I can. But Daejung, prepare yourself. The odds aren't good. I don't care about odds, Daejung said. I care about Kai. Can I see him? She hesitated, then nodded. 10 minutes. That's all I can give you. In the holding cell, Kai rushed to the barrier when he saw Dae-jung. He pressed against the energy field, whining. Dae-jung placed his hand against the barrier, and Kai matched it with his claw. Listen to me, Dae-jung said. We're going to train. I'm going to teach you everything I know. And in 6 months, you're going to show them what you're really made of. Kai tilted his head, confused. You're going to prove that being different isn't being weak, Dae-jung continued. That having feelings doesn't make you defective, it makes you strong. Kai made a questioning sound. Because, Dae-jung said, fighting back tears. I already lost one family. I won't lose you too. Do you understand? I won't give up on you. Ever. Kai's eyes reflected something deep and complex. Then he signed slowly, deliberately. Family. It was the first new word Dae-jung had taught him, and Kai had remembered. Yes, Dae-jung whispered. The hearing went exactly as Dae-jung expected. He was found guilty of violating multiple regulations. His punishment was a formal reprimand and mandatory community service. But the real consequence was the agreement forced upon him. Kai would live, but only if he passed the proving in 6 months. If he failed, he would be executed immediately. No appeals, no second chances. Commander Ha-rin managed one concession. Kai could stay with Dae-jung during the training period, under strict monitoring. A tracking device was implanted in Kai's shoulder. His location would be known at all times. If he showed any aggression, any violent behavior, the experiment would end. Don't waste this chance, Ha-rin told Dae-jung privately. A lot of people think I'm crazy for allowing this. Thank you, was all Dae-jung could say. The first week of training was disaster. Dae-jung tried to teach Kai basic Krothix combat moves from videos he found in the database. But Kai hesitated at every strike. When Dae-jung set up practice targets, Kai would stop before hitting them. You have to hit them, Dae-jung encouraged. They're just dummies. But Kai would look at the target, then at Dae-jung, confusion in his eyes. Violence didn't come naturally to him. It went against everything in his nature. Tae-won watched one session and shook his head. This isn't working. He doesn't think like other Krothix. Maybe that's the problem. Then how do we train him? Dae-jung asked, frustrated and scared. Time was running out. Stop trying to make him into something he's not, Tae-won said. Train him to be what he is. Different. It was simple advice, but it changed everything. Dae-jung stopped using Krothix training methods. Instead, he went back to human military history. He studied warriors who won, not through brute force, but through strategy and discipline. He read about martial arts that emphasized control over aggression, defense over offense. Strength isn't about hurting others, Dae-jung explained to Kai one evening. They sat together in the cargo bay, which had been officially designated as their training space. Real strength is about protecting what matters. Can you understand that? Kai made a low rumbling sound. He was trying to speak, Dae-jung realized. After months of practice, Kai was finally attempting human words. Protect, Kai managed. His voice was deep and rough, but understandable. Dae-jung's eyes went wide. Yes, protect. That's what we're training for. Not to hurt, but to protect. Something clicked in Kai's mind. After that, training improved dramatically. When Dae-jung framed exercises as defensive maneuvers, Kai excelled. He learned to disarm opponents without injuring them. He practiced holds that restrained rather than damaged. His natural empathy, the very thing that made him defective, became his greatest advantage. He could read body language and predict movements better than any Krothix warrior, but they needed help. Dae-jung was just a janitor and former veterinarian. He knew nothing about real combat training. That's when Dr. Subin entered their lives. She was a xenobiologist who had heard rumors about the human and his pet Krathix. Curious, she requested permission to study Kai for her research. Commander Ha-Rin approved, hoping scientific documentation might help Kai's case. Dr. Subin arrived at their training session with scanners and notebooks. She watched Kai move through exercises, her expression growing more amazed by the minute. After an hour, she approached Daejung. "I need to show you something." She displayed her scanner results. "These are Kai's brain scans. Do you see these patterns? This level of neural complexity is unprecedented in Krathix. His emotional capacity isn't a defect. It's an evolution." "What do you mean?" Daejung asked. "Normal Krathix brains are optimized for aggression and quick reactions, perfect for soldiers, but limited in other ways. Kai's brain has additional neural pathways that allow for complex problem-solving, emotional processing, and advanced learning. He's smarter than adult Krathix, significantly smarter. Then why do they see it as a flaw?" "Because it's different, Doctor," Subin said sadly. "And the Krathix culture fears difference. But Daejung, if you train him right, Kai could revolutionize how we think about his species." She agreed to help. Dr. Subin created specialized training programs based on Kai's unique neurology. She designed puzzles and strategy games that challenged his mind, while Daejung trained his body. Word spread through the base. Some people thought Daejung was a fool. Others found the situation fascinating. A few started coming to watch training sessions. Taewon set up viewing screens in a rec room where people could watch without disturbing them. Kai grew larger each week. By month 3, he stood 7 feet tall. His scales had fully hardened into a deep blue-black color, unusual for Krathix. Most were gray or brown. His eyes were amber instead of the typical red. Everything about him marked him as different, but he was also becoming magnificent. His movements were fluid and precise. When he practiced combat forms, there was a grace to it that made people stop and stare. This wasn't the brutal efficiency of Krathix warriors. This was something else. Something beautiful. The Velshara ambassador requested to meet Kai. The insectoid diplomat watched a training session with her multifaceted eyes gleaming. "Fascinating," she clicked. "He fights like water, not stone. Adapting instead of overwhelming." "Is that bad?" Daejung asked nervously. "On the contrary," the ambassador said. "It's brilliant. The Krathix have been the same for 1,000 years. Perhaps it's time for change." Her support helped. The Velshara carried significant weight in coalition politics. If they endorsed Kai, others might follow. But not everyone was pleased. Lieutenant Byung-ho filed complaint after complaint. He argued that Kai was a security risk, that Daejung was violating protocols, that the whole situation set a dangerous precedent. "He's just angry he didn't get promoted," Taewon muttered. "He wants someone to blame." Month 4 brought a new challenge. Kai started becoming frustrated with training. He was progressing well, but the pressure was getting to him. One evening, during a particularly difficult exercise, Kai lost control. He struck a target too hard, and his claws tore through it completely. The force of his own strike made him stumble. He looked at his claws, then at Daejung, horror in his eyes. He had been trying so hard to be gentle, and for a moment, he had failed. "It's okay," Daejung said quickly. But Kai backed away, shaking his head. "Hurt," he said. "I hurt." "You didn't hurt anyone," Daejung assured him. "It was just a target." "Could hurt you," Kai said, his voice filled with anguish. "Too strong, too dangerous." He retreated to the corner of the cargo bay and wouldn't move. Daejung sat down on the floor, far from him. "Do you know why I became a janitor?" Daejung asked quietly. Kai's ears twitched, listening. "I used to be a veterinarian. I loved animals. I was good at my job. But one day, I made a mistake during a surgery. The animal died. After that, I couldn't do it anymore. I was too afraid of making another mistake. Kai looked at him, understanding in his eyes. I ran away from what I loved because I was scared, Daejung continued. I came to space. I became a janitor because I thought cleaning was safe. I couldn't hurt anyone that way. But do you know what? I was miserable. Until I found you. He stood up slowly and walked toward Kai. You gave me a reason to be brave again. You showed me that being afraid of your own strength doesn't protect anyone. It just makes you weak. One. Daejung held out his hand. Kai stared at it, then carefully placed his massive claw in Daejung's palm. This is exactly why you'll succeed, Daejung said. Because you care. Because you're afraid of hurting others. That makes you stronger, not weaker. A warrior who knows the cost of violence is more powerful than one who doesn't care. Kai's eyes brightened. Stronger. Because care? Yes, Daejung smiled. Exactly. After that, training changed again. Daejung incorporated control exercises. Kai practiced moving with precision, learning to calibrate his strength for different situations. He learned to restrain without injuring, to disable without killing. Dr. Subin was amazed. He has better motor control than adult Krathix despite his size. The empathy helps. He can sense how much pressure is too much. Month 5 arrived. Kai was now as large as an adult Krathix warrior. His training had progressed to the point where Taewon had to build combat drones for him to practice against. Real opponents were too dangerous, and none of the Krathix on base would volunteer to spar with him. But Kai could defeat 3 drones simultaneously, using tactics that baffled the programmers. He didn't fight like Krathix warriors, and the drones couldn't predict his moves. He's creating his own combat style, Dr. Subin observed. Drawing from human martial arts, Krathix strength, and his own unique processing. I've never seen anything like it. The viewing room during training sessions was now packed. Dozens of personnel from different species came to watch. Kai had become a phenomenon. People argued about whether he would pass the proving. Some placed bets. Kai was aware of the attention. Sometimes Daejung caught him looking at the screens, knowing people were watching. It made him nervous. Daejung had to work with him on focus and confidence. Don't think about them, Daejung said. Think about why you're doing this. To live, Kai said. His speech had improved dramatically. No, Daejung corrected. To prove that different isn't wrong. That's bigger than just surviving. In the final weeks, they received an unexpected visitor. A young Krathix warrior named Korsath appeared at their training session. He watched silently for an hour, then approached. I was there the day they ordered your culling, Korsath said to Kai. I was part of the clutch. When they scanned us, they found my aggression markers too high. They nearly culled me too. For being too violent. Kai stared at him in surprise. The elders decided I could be controlled with discipline, Korsath continued. But watching you train, I realized something. You have what I lack. Control. Precision. You fight with your mind, not just instinct. That is true strength. Why tell me this? Kai asked. Because I will be one of your opponents in the proving, Korsath said. The general demanded the best fighters test you. I want you to know that I will not hold back. But I will also not fight with hatred. You deserve an honorable test. After he left, Kai was quiet. Are you scared? Daejung asked. Yes, Kai admitted. But also, grateful. He respects me. That is more than I expected. The night before the proving, Daejung and Kai sat together in their quarters. Kai was too big now to fit comfortably in the space, but he curled up as small as he could, his head resting near Daejung. Tomorrow, everything changes, Daejung said. Whatever happens, I want you to know something. I'm proud of you. Not because of what you've become, but because of who you are, Kai rumbled softly. Scared. I know. Me too. What if I fail? Daejung stroked Kai's scales. Then we face that together. But Kai, I don't think you'll fail. You've already proven yourself to me. Tomorrow is just showing everyone else. Kai was quiet for a moment. Then he said something that broke Daejung's heart. If I die, thank you for showing me what love is. Daejung couldn't respond. He just held Kai's massive head and cried. This beautiful, gentle soul, who had been thrown away like trash, who had learned to speak, to read, to care, who called him family. You're not going to die, Daejung whispered fiercely. You hear me? You're going to live. You're going to show them all what you're made of. And then, we're going to continue this life together. Kai made a sound like a sigh. Together. Family. Always family. Daejung agreed. They stayed like that until dawn. The combat arena was packed. Every species on base Epsilon 7 had sent representatives. The Velshara ambassador sat in the front row with her delegation. Orundal engineers filled an entire section. Even the reclusive Minari traders had come to watch. And in the highest observation box sat 3 Krathix generals from the homeworld. They had traveled for weeks to witness this unprecedented event. General Vrix Nal stood with them, his expression unreadable. Daejung stood in the preparation area with Kai. The young Krathix was fully armored now, wearing traditional warrior plates that Dr. Subin had modified for his unique build. He looked magnificent and terrifying, but his hands shook. I can't do this, Kai whispered. His improved speech made his fear even more heartbreaking. Too many watching. Too many watching. Look at me, Daejung said firmly. Kai's amber eyes focused on him. Forget them. This isn't about proving yourself to them. This is about showing yourself what you're capable of. I already know. Now it's your turn to know. What if I'm not strong enough? You are. But strength isn't just muscles and claws. It's here. Daejung touched Kai's chest. And here, he touched Kai's head. You have both. Use them. Taewon rushed over with a tablet. They just announced the trials. Daejung. This is bad. Really bad. The screen showed the 3 tests Kai would face. Daejung's blood went cold. These weren't standard proving trials. They were significantly harder. General Vrix Nal had rigged everything to ensure Kai would fail. He has to fight 3 adult warriors simultaneously in the first trial, Taewon said. That's normally a test for elite soldiers, not initiates. They want me to fail, Kai said quietly. They want excuse to execute me. Then we don't give them one, Daejung said, though his heart was racing. 6 months of training might not be enough for this. The arena doors opened. A voice boomed through speakers. The proving of the defective one called Kai will now begin. First trial. Combat. Kai walked into the arena. The crowd went silent. Under the harsh lights, his unusual coloring was even more apparent. His blue-black scales shimmered. His amber eyes scanned the space calmly. He had been trained to assess environments immediately. 3 massive Krathix warriors entered from the opposite side. They were all experienced fighters, scarred and deadly. One of them was Korsath, who had visited during training. The other 2 Daejung didn't recognize. General Vrixnal's voice echoed through the arena. Combat trial begins. Defeat your opponents. Death is not required, but surrender is not permitted. The 3 warriors charged immediately. Standard Krathix tactic. Overwhelm with speed and aggression. But Kai didn't meet them head-on. He moved laterally, using his speed to avoid the first strike. The warriors adapted quickly, spreading out to surround him. Daejung held his breath. This was the moment everything relied on. 3 against 1. Experienced warriors against someone who had trained for only 6 months. The first warrior lunged. Kai blocked, but instead of pushing back, he redirected the force, using the warrior's momentum against him. The warrior stumbled past. In that split second, Kai struck with precision at pressure points Dr. Subin had identified. The warrior's arm went numb, and his weapon dropped. The crowd gasped. That wasn't a typical Krathix move. The second warrior attacked from behind. Kai spun, his tail whipping out to block the strike. Then he grabbed the warrior's arm and twisted. Not to break, but to control. He threw the warrior off balance and into the third attacker. Both stumbled. Kai pressed his advantage. His movements were fluid, almost dance-like. He wasn't fighting with rage. He was fighting with precision and intelligence. Korsath recovered and came at him with a combination of strikes. Kai blocked each one, his empathy allowing him to read the patterns. Then he countered with a move that was purely his own creation. He dropped low, swept Korsath's legs, and as the warrior fell, Kai caught him and controlled the descent to prevent injury. "Stop," Korsath said from the ground. "I yield." A Krathix warrior had yielded. It was almost unheard of. The remaining two warriors looked at each other, then attacked together. Kai met them with calm determination. He disarmed one, disabled the other's leg with a precise strike, and ended with both warriors on the ground, restrained but uninjured. The entire fight had lasted 3 minutes. The arena erupted in noise. Some species cheered, others argued. The Krathix section was silent, shocked by what they had witnessed. General Vrixnal's expression was dark. The defective one has passed the first trial. By technique, not honor. He won, Commander Harin said loudly from her seat. That's what matters. Kai returned to the preparation area. He was breathing hard but uninjured. Daejung grabbed him in a hug, not caring who saw. "You were amazing," Daejung said. "Trial 2? Kai asked. Taewon pulled up the information. "Strategy, simulation. You'll command simulated forces in a battle scenario. It's usually a straightforward combat situation. Taewon, simulated forces. Taewon, pulled up the information. But when Kai entered the simulation chamber, the scenario that loaded was anything but straightforward. A nightmare scenario. Defend a civilian station against overwhelming enemy forces with limited resources. Most Krathix would choose an aggressive defense, meeting force with force. It was their nature. Daejung watched from the observation screen. "Come on, Kai. Think. Use what we talked about." Kai studied the simulation for a long moment. Then he made his moves. Instead of engaging the enemy directly, he ordered evacuations. He used the available forces to create diversions while civilians escaped. He sacrificed military objectives to save lives. When forced to fight, he used terrain and tactics to minimize casualties on both sides. The simulation lasted 30 minutes. When it ended, the results displayed showed that Kai had achieved the primary objective with 97% civilian survival and minimal military losses. The Krathix observers were confused. Some called it cowardice. But the Velshara ambassador stood up. That, she clicked loudly, was brilliant tactical thinking. He prioritized the right objectives: civilians over glory, strategy over pride. This is the future of warfare, not the past. General Vrixnal looked furious. The tactics were unorthodox, not in accordance with Krathix doctrine. The trial was to demonstrate strategic competence, Commander Harin countered. He achieved complete victory with minimal losses. That's superior strategy by any measure. The other generals conferred. Finally, one of them spoke. The defective one has passed the second trial. His methods are unusual, but effective. 2 trials passed, 1 remained. But when the third trial was announced, Daejung's heart sank. Survival trial. Kai would be dropped in a hostile environment for 48 hours. He had to return alive to the extraction point. That's standard, Taewon said. Kai can handle wilderness survival. We trained for this, but Daejung had a bad feeling. He pulled Taewon aside. Can you access the deployment files? Something feels wrong. Taewon hacked into the system while Kai was being prepared for deployment. His face went pale. Daejung, look at this. The screen showed the survival zone map. There were markers indicating training obstacles. But Taewon's enhanced view revealed what they really were. Combat drones, automated defenses, and something else. Those are life signs, Taewon whispered. Vrix Nal has sent actual warriors into the survival zone. He's planning to assassinate Kai and make it look like he died during the trial. Daejung's blood turned to ice. We have to stop this. If we report it, we need proof. And by the time we gather evidence, Kai will already be deployed. Then I'm going in after him. That's forbidden. If you enter the trial zone, it voids everything. Kai will be disqualified. If I don't go in, he'll die, Daejung said. I don't care about rules anymore. He ran to the deployment area. Kai was already in the transport ship, about to be launched. Daejung grabbed emergency survival gear and forced his way onto a maintenance shuttle. Sir, you can't, a technician started. I'm going, Daejung said. You can report me, arrest me, whatever. But I'm not letting him face this alone. The shuttle launched before anyone could stop him. Meanwhile, Kai had been dropped in a dense forest region on Viridian Prime. The environment was hostile, but manageable. He had trained for this. Find water, find shelter, navigate to the extraction point. But as night fell, Kai heard sounds that shouldn't be there. Movement in the trees. Not animal movement. Coordinated. Military. Kai's instincts screamed danger. He climbed a tree and watched. Through the darkness, he saw them. 4 Krathix warriors, fully armed, searching for him. This wasn't part of the trial. This was an assassination. Kai's first instinct was to run. But he couldn't. If he ran from the extraction point, he would fail the trial. He had to survive and reach the target location, which meant going through these assassins. He thought about everything Daejung had taught him. Protect what matters. Fight smart, not angry. Disable. Don't destroy. The warriors split up to search. Kai moved silently through the trees, using stealth instead of confrontation. When one warrior came too close, Kai dropped down and knocked him unconscious with a precise strike. He tied the warrior up carefully so he wouldn't be hurt by wild animals, then moved on. The second warrior he caught in a trap, using vines and his own strength to incapacitate without killing. The third, he lured into a ravine, where the warrior became stuck. But the fourth warrior was smart. He had been watching. When Kai approached the extraction point, the warrior was waiting. The general sent us to finish what should have been done at your hatching, the warrior said. Nothing personal. Just following orders. Then don't, Kai said. You have choice. Following bad orders doesn't make them right. A defective preaching morality, the warrior laughed. Pathetic. They fought. This warrior was skilled, and Kai was tired from 2 previous trials and a day of survival. The fight was brutal. Kai took several hits, his armor cracking. Blood ran down his scales, but he remembered Daejung's words. Strength isn't just physical. It's mental. It's heart. Kai stopped trying to fight like a Krathix warrior. Instead, he fought like himself. He used tactics his opponent didn't expect. Defensive moves that frustrated. Patience that outlasted aggression. Finally, the warrior made a mistake. Overcommitted to an attack. Kai seized the opportunity. He disarmed the warrior and pinned him. I could kill you, Kai said. But I won't. Because I'm not like you. Go back. Tell the general I passed his test. All of them. He released the warrior and walked away, toward the extraction point. That's when Daejung burst through the trees. "Kai!" he shouted. Then he saw the blood, the damaged armor, the exhausted expression. "Oh God! What did they do?" "Daejung," Kai said in confusion. "You cannot be here. This is trial zone. You will void my..." Teller. He was interrupted by a weapons charging sound. General Vrixnal emerged from the forest, heavily armed. "How convenient," the general said. "The defective and his human pet, together. Now I can end this farce properly." Daejung stepped in front of Kai, just like that first night in the corridor. "You'll have to go through me. Clean. Gladly." Vrixnal raised his weapon. A shot rang out. But it didn't come from the general. Commander Harin stepped into the clearing, her weapon trained on Vrixnal. Behind her came coalition security forces and the other two Krathix generals. "Lower your weapon, Vrixnal," one of the generals ordered. "We monitored the trial. We saw what you did. Assassination attempts, rigged scenarios, sending warriors into a survival trial. You have dishonored yourself and our people." Evidence drones hovered in the air, recording everything. Taewon had sent them. Every moment of Vrixnal's treachery was documented. The general's expression crumbled. "He is defective. He deserves. He defeated your assassins without killing them," the female general interrupted. "He passed every trial despite your sabotage. He showed more honor than you have displayed in this entire proceeding." She approached Kai, looking at him with new eyes. "You have passed the proving. Unexpectedly. Impressively. And in doing so, you have forced us to question our own traditions. Perhaps defects are not weaknesses. Perhaps they are evolution." Kai swayed, his injuries and exhaustion catching up. Daejung caught him. "I did it," Kai whispered. "You did it," Daejung said, tears streaming down his face. "You're free. You're alive. You're amazing." General Vrixnal was taken away by coalition security. The other generals declared Kai's proving complete and successful. He was granted full citizenship in the coalition. As the sun rose over the forest, Daejung sat with Kai, treating his wounds with supplies from the medics. Kai was half asleep, exhausted, but content. "Abog," Kai murmured. "Father." "Yes, my son," Daejung whispered back. "I'm here. I'll always be here." 2 years had changed everything. Daejung stood at the window of his new office in the Xenological Integration Department, watching ships arrive at Base Epsilon 7. The base had grown significantly. New sections had been added to accommodate the programs he had designed. Programs that helped different species understand each other. Programs based on one simple principle. Difference wasn't weakness. Behind him, the door opened with a hydraulic hiss. Daejung smiled, before even turning around. He knew that footstep pattern. "You're late for the meeting," Daejung said. "Security protocols." Kai replied, his deep voice resonant and clear. His speech had become flawless over the past 2 years. The delegation from the Krathix homeworld brought their own guards. Standard procedure, but time-consuming. Daejung turned to look at his son. Kai stood 8 feet tall now, fully grown. His blue-black scales gleamed under the office lights. He wore the uniform of base security chief, with modifications for his unique build. On his shoulder was a patch showing both the coalition symbol and a new emblem, one that other Krathix had started wearing. A shield with an open hand. Protection, not aggression. "How are they treating you?" Daejung asked. After Kai's successful proving, more Krathix had come to the base. Some were hostile. Others were curious. "Better," Kai said. "Though General Makresh still refuses to make eye contact." He paused. "But 3 young warriors requested to join my training program today." 3? Daejung's eyebrows rose. "That's more than usual." "My." They saw the mission reports from the Outer Rim incident. 0 casualties across 4 operations. It impressed them. It had impressed everyone. Kai had been given command of security operations 6 months ago. Since then, Base Epsilon 7 had the best safety record in the coalition. Kai's methods, emphasizing de-escalation and strategic thinking, had proven remarkably effective. But success brought its own challenges. The homeworld delegation wants to see you after the meeting, Dae-jung said carefully. They have a proposal. Kai's expression became guarded. What kind of proposal? They wouldn't say, but General Makresh mentioned, the council has been watching your career. Before Kai could respond, Tae-won burst into the office. Turn on the news. Now. Dae-jung activated the wall screen. A coalition news broadcast was covering a story about a separatist movement among the Krathiks. A faction that rejected integration with other species. A faction that viewed Kai as a traitor and symbol of everything wrong with their people. The separatist leader appeared on screen, a scarred warrior named Drakvan. The one called Kai has corrupted our youth with weakness. He teaches them to hesitate, to spare enemies, to feel emotions that make them vulnerable. This is not the Krathik's way. We challenge him to single combat. If he accepts and wins, we will consider negotiation. If he refuses, we attack this base and all who support the corruption of our species. The broadcast ended. The office was silent. This is a trap, Tae-won said immediately. They'll never honor any agreement. Probably, Kai agreed. His voice was calm, but Dae-jung could see the tension in his posture. But if I refuse, people will die. The base isn't prepared for a full Krathik's assault. Coalition forces can defend the base, Dae-jung said, though his voice shook. He had thought the danger was over after the proving. He should have known better. At what cost? Kai asked. Casualties on both sides. Destroyed relationships between species. Years of integration, work undone. All because of me. This isn't your fault, Dae-jung said firmly. Maybe not, but it is my responsibility. Kai looked at his father with those intelligent, amber eyes. You taught me that. Remember? Important things are invisible to the eye. What matters is taking responsibility for what we've tamed. Dae-jung felt tears threaten. Kai was quoting The Little Prince back to him, the book they had read together so many times. You've tamed me too, Kai continued softly. I'm coming with you, Dae-jung said immediately. Absolutely not. Not negotiable. We're family. We face things together. Kai started to argue, then stopped. He knew that expression on Dae-jung's face. The same stubborn determination that had saved him from the disposal unit, that had stood between him and General Vrixnal, that had never, ever given up on him. Together, Kai finally agreed. But you stay behind me. Commander Ha-rin arranged the meeting at a neutral location, a small moon between base and separatist territory. No weapons, except what the combatants carried. Observers from all coalition species would be present, ensuring rules were followed. The night before departure, Kai couldn't sleep. He found Dae-jung in the archives, researching separatist tactics. Can't sleep either, Kai asked. Too much to do, Dae-jung replied. But his hands trembled as he scrolled through data. Kai sat beside him, his large frame making the human furniture creak. They sat in silence for a while, comfortable with each other's presence. I'm afraid, Kai admitted finally. Me too. What if I can't win? What if I've taught myself limitations that get people killed? Dae-jung closed his tablet and looked at his son. Kai, you've won every engagement you've led. You've revolutionized how people think about conflict resolution. You've proven that strength and compassion aren't opposites. Why doubt yourself now? Because tomorrow isn't about tactics or strategy. It's about everything we believe in. If I fail, I prove them right. That empathy is weakness. That different is wrong. And if you win, Kai was quiet for a moment. If I win, maybe we change the galaxy. Maybe other species start questioning their own traditions. Maybe we prove that evolution isn't just physical. Then I'd say the stakes are worth being afraid for, Daejung said. But Kai, remember something. You've already won the important battle. You survived when they tried to kill you. You grew when they expected you to fail. You became someone who makes even generals ask permission to enter your space. That's not weakness. That's the strongest thing I've ever seen. Kai leaned his head against Daejung's shoulder, something he'd done since he was small. Thank you. For everything. For saving me. For teaching me. For never giving up. Thank you for letting me, Daejung replied. For being the family I thought I'd lost forever. They stayed like that until dawn. The neutral moon was cold and barren. A perfect arena. According to ancient Krathik's tradition, hundreds of observers gathered at a safe distance, protected by energy shields. Cameras broadcast the event across Coalition space. Billions were watching. Kai stood in the center of the designated combat zone. Across from him, Drakvan emerged from a transport ship. He was massive, even by Krathik's standards. His scales were gray, traditional coloring. His eyes were red, burning with conviction. Behind him stood his most loyal warriors. Daejung stood in the observation area with Commander Harin and Dr. Subin. His heart pounded so hard he felt dizzy. Kai's bigger than him, Taewon observed from beside them. But Drakvan has 20 years more combat experience, Dr. Subin said quietly. This isn't like the proving. This is a fight to the death. Daejung closed his eyes. He had taught Kai to value life, to avoid killing. But now his son faced an opponent who wouldn't show mercy. Had he made Kai too soft for this cruel universe? The combat began without ceremony. Drakvan charged immediately, all power and rage, traditional Krathik's aggression. Kai met him not with matching aggression, but with fluid defense. He blocked, redirected, moved. He's not attacking, someone in the crowd said. He's just defending. Coward! One of Drakvan's warriors shouted. But Daejung understood. Kai was reading his opponent, learning patterns, waiting for the right moment. It was brilliant strategy, but it looked like hesitation. Drakvan landed a heavy blow that sent Kai stumbling. Blood appeared on Kai's shoulder where claws had penetrated. The crowd gasped. Come on, Daejung whispered. Fight back, please. As if hearing him, Kai shifted his stance. The defensive posture changed. Now he began counterattacking. But his strikes weren't aimed to kill. He targeted joints, pressure points, places that would disable without destroying. Drakvan roared in frustration. Stop holding back. Fight like a true warrior. I am fighting like a true warrior, Kai replied calmly. My way. He disarmed Drakvan of his blade, then disabled his right arm, then swept his legs. Drakvan crashed to the ground, and Kai pinned him there. His claws were at Drakvan's throat. One movement would end it. The entire moon held its breath. I could kill you, Kai said loudly, ensuring everyone heard. But I won't. Because you're right about one thing. I am different from traditional Krathiks. I don't see death as the only solution. I see opportunity. Opportunity for you to choose differently. Then you're weak, Drakvan spat. No. I'm strong enough to show mercy. Are you strong enough to accept it? Kai removed his claws from Drakvan's throat and stood up, stepping back. Get up. Tell your followers what you saw here today. A warrior who won without killing. Who proved his point without violence. Is that weakness? Or is that the future? Drakvan slowly stood. He looked at his warriors, then at Kai, then at the thousands watching. His expression cycled through rage, confusion, and finally something like understanding. Who taught you this? Drakvan asked. Kai looked toward the observation area, finding Daejung's face in the crowd. A janitor. The strongest person I've ever known. The crowd erupted in noise. Some cheered. Some argued. But the energy had shifted. Something fundamental had changed. Drakvon stared at Kai for a long moment. Then, he did something unprecedented. He bowed. Not a submission bow, but a bow of respect. As the separatists left, the observers rushed onto the moon's surface. Daejung ran to Kai, not caring about protocols or appearances. He grabbed his son in a fierce hug. "You did it," Daejung said. "You actually did it. We did it," Kai corrected, holding him gently. The delegation from the Krathik's homeworld approached. General Makresh looked at Kai with an expression that might have been pride. "The council has a proposal," she said. "We want you to become our ambassador to the coalition, to teach what you've learned, to show our people that there are new ways to be strong." Kai looked overwhelmed. "I'm honored, but I need time to consider. I mean in 80s, of course. But Kai, understand what this means. You wouldn't just be representing base Epsilon 7. You'd be representing the future of our entire species. The weight of that. He won't carry it alone," Daejung interrupted. Everyone looked at him. This janitor speaking to a general, but he didn't care. "If Kai accepts, I go with him. As his advisor, his family. Whatever title you want to give me." General Makresh's expression softened slightly. "The human who raised him? Yes, that would be appropriate. Some of our people would object. But after what we witnessed today, I think they will learn to accept it." 5 years passed. Kai served as Krathik's ambassador to the Coalition Council. Daejung served as his chief advisor, though most people understood his real role. Father, mentor, the person who had seen a discarded baby and chosen love over fear. Base Epsilon 7 had been transformed into an integration academy. Young warriors from aggressive species came to learn Kai's methods. The curriculum combined traditional strength training with emotional intelligence, strategic thinking, and cross-species understanding. Taewon ran the technical programs. Dr. Subin led the research division. Commander Harin had been promoted to base commander. And Lieutenant Byung-ho, ironically, had requested transfer to a remote station. Couldn't handle the changes. Daejung's quarters in the diplomatic section were filled with memories. Drawings Kai had made over the years, each one showing his growing skill. Photos of important moments. That battered copy of The Little Prince, now a prized possession. One evening, as Daejung was reviewing documents for an upcoming council session, an alert came through. A situation in the cargo bay. A young alien had been found, scared and alone. Daejung smiled. He contacted Kai. "We have a situation. A young Minari. Looks like he was abandoned by his pod. He's terrified." "Whoat, I'll be right there," Kai replied. "Should I bring medical supplies? And a blanket? And patience?" They met at the cargo bay. The young Minari was curled in a corner, making frightened sounds. Kai approached slowly, projecting calm. He knew what it was like to be abandoned and afraid. "It's okay," Kai said gently. "You're safe now." The young Minari looked up at the massive Krathik's warrior towering over him. By all logic, he should have been more frightened. But something in Kai's eyes, that unusual amber color, radiated safety. "What happens now?" a security officer asked. Kai looked at Daejung. A silent conversation passed between them. Years of trust and understanding. "Now," Kai said, "we do what family does. We take care of each other." He carefully picked up the young Minari, wrapping him in the blanket. "Come, let's get you warm and fed. Then we'll figure out the rest together." As they walked through the corridors, Daejung watched his son comfort the frightened child. This was what they had built. Not just policies or programs, but a fundamental change in how beings treated each other. People passed them in the corridor. Humans, Krathiks, Velshara, Orundal. Some nodded respectfully to Kai. Others smiled at the sight of the fierce warrior gently holding a frightened child. No one questioned it. This was normal now. Later, after the young Minari had been settled in temporary quarters with food and medical care, Kai and Daejung sat in their favorite observation room. The stars stretched endlessly before them. Another one saved, Daejung said. Because of what you taught me, Kai replied. That first night, when you found me in the disposal unit, you changed everything. Not just for me, but for everyone. All of this, he gestured to the base, the ships, the stars beyond, started with one person who cared enough to help. One janitor, Daejung said with a smile. The most important janitor in the galaxy, Kai corrected. You cleaned up the biggest mess anyone could imagine. A broken baby, a broken system, a broken way of thinking, and you turned it into something beautiful. Daejung felt the familiar tightness in his throat that came with strong emotion. We did that together. I gave you a chance. But you chose what to do with it. You chose to be kind when kindness wasn't expected. You chose to be strong in new ways. You chose to believe that different could be better. They sat in comfortable silence, watching ships come and go. Each ship carried people affected by the changes they had started. Young warriors learning new methods, diplomats negotiating with compassion, species that had been enemies learning to be friends. Do you ever regret it? Kai asked suddenly. Saving me? Your life would have been simpler, Daejung laughed. Simpler? Maybe. But empty. Kai, before I found you, I was just existing. Going through motions. Hiding from pain. You gave me purpose again. You gave me family. You gave me hope. How could I ever regret that? Even when generals tried to execute me? When separatists challenged me? When every day was a fight? Especially then, Daejung said firmly. Because those fights meant something. We weren't just surviving. We were changing things. Making the universe a little bit better. A little bit kinder. Another 16 Mai. Another 16 Mai. Kai rumbled softly, that purring sound he still made when content. I love you, Abioji. I love you too, my son. A message came through on Kai's communicator. He checked it and smiled. The young Minari is asking for us. He wants to know if we'll read him a story. What story should we read? Daejung asked, though he already knew the answer. The Little Prince, they said together. As they walked to the young Minari's quarters, Daejung thought about how far they had come. From a disposal unit to the council chambers. From a discarded baby to an ambassador. From a lonely janitor to a father with purpose. The most important things really were invisible to the eye. Love. Family. The decision to care when it would be easier not to. The choice to see potential instead of problems. They entered the quarters where the young Minari waited. He looked up at them with hopeful eyes. Daejung pulled out the worn book, settling into a chair. Kai sat on the floor beside him, his massive form somehow not intimidating in this moment. Once upon a time, Daejung began, there was a little prince who lived on an asteroid. Outside, the stars continued their ancient dance. Inside, a human janitor and a Krathix warrior read a story to a frightened child. And somewhere in that simple act was everything that mattered. The universe was vast and often cruel. But it could also be kind. It could change. It could learn, one person at a time, one act of compassion at a time, one family at a time. And it had all started with a janitor who refused to walk past a baby in the trash, who chose love over fear, who proved that the smallest decision could change everything. As Daejung read the familiar words, Kai's tail gently curled around his chair, a gesture of protection and affection that had become their signature. The young Minari watched with wide eyes, absorbing not just the story but the bond between the two beings reading it. This was the real story. Not the dramatic trials or political changes, but this, a makeshift family, reading together, showing a frightened child that he was safe, that he mattered, that someone cared. The future would bring more challenges. There would always be those who resisted change, who clung to old ways, who saw difference as threat. But looking at the peace in this room, Dae-jung knew they would face it, together, always together. Because that's what family did, and they had cleaned up the biggest mess of all. They had turned hate into understanding, fear into acceptance, isolation into connection. Not bad for a janitor and the baby he refused to abandon. Not bad at all.